Sexual desire is not merely a fleeting impulse or a biological urge. It is the very essence of our being, an eternal flame that burns within us, defying time, circumstance, and suppression. Carl Jung viewed libido not just as sexual energy, but as the life force itself, driving our creativity, ambition, and spiritual pursuits. This energy is not confined to the physical realm. It permeates every aspect of our existence, fueling our passions and shaping our identities. Even when repressed or denied, sexual desire finds expression through other channels: art, innovation, spirituality. It is an indomitable force that refuses to be extinguished, continually seeking outlets to manifest and evolve. In embracing our sexual desire, we acknowledge a fundamental truth about ourselves. We recognize that this desire is not a weakness to be overcome, but a vital component of our humanity, deserving of understanding, respect, and integration into our lives. Thus, sexual desire never truly dies because it is inseparable from who we are. It is a testament to our vitality, our creativity, and our capacity for connection. By honoring this aspect of ourselves, we embrace the fullness of our human experience. Because it's never just about the act. It's about aliveness. The same pulse that draws two bodies into union is the same force that fuels art, that sculpts empires, that whispers to you in dreams. Create, pursue, become. Sexual desire is not primitive. It is primal. It is the original language of the soul. Before we learned to speak in apologies, before shame was taught like doctrine, before we were told to sit still, stay small, stay pure. But there is nothing impure about fire. There is nothing shameful about wanting to be touched, to be seen, to be known not in concept, but in contact. Desire is sacred. And what makes it sacred is not how we hide it, but how we hold it, with reverence, with responsibility, with a fierce kind of honesty that says, this too is part of my spirit. The body was never the enemy. The body is the altar. And when you silence that altar, when you deny its hunger, shrink its ache, punish its yearning, you do not become enlightened. You become fractured, because suppression is not transcendence. It is disconnection. The wise don't fear desire. They channel it. They alchemize it. They let it move through them, not to control them, but to awaken them. Because sexual desire is not here to dominate. It's here to reveal where you're still hiding, to reveal what you truly crave, to reveal the intensity with which your soul wants to touch this life. And that hunger, that raw, untamed life force, will not die with age. It does not retreat with titles or spiritual language. It waits patiently, like a storm beneath the surface, because it knows you were born to burn. You were born to feel everything, not just the polished emotions, not just the tamed affections, but the full spectrum, the heat, the hunger, the ache, because desire doesn't whisper politely. It roars. It roars through your spine. When a glance lingers too long, it roars through your skin. When presence becomes unbearable, it roars through your soul. When you are reminded that you are not just here to exist, you are here to embody, to live inside this skin as though it were holy, to worship not a distant God, but the divine found in the trembling of touch, in the gasp before surrender, in the stillness between connection and collapse. This is the altar of the erotic, not pornographic, but poetic, not lust without direction, but love so deep it must first pass through fire to become true. That's why sexual desire never dies. Because it is not merely the body's need for climax. It is the soul's cry for union. Union with another. Union with creation. Union with the forgotten parts of yourself you left buried in guilt and silence. Desire is the soul's rebellion against numbness. It is the refusal to go quietly into a life of quiet repression. It is the reminder that your flesh is not the obstacle. It is the invitation. And when you finally stop waging war with your own longing, when you let your hunger speak, when you no longer punish your pulse for being too loud, you return to a state older than language, older than fear, older than shame. You return to the temple within you that was never lost, only locked. And you realize desire is not your weakness. It is your origin. It is your wild. It is your way back. The way back to your untamed self. The one who existed before the world taught you to be afraid of your own fire. Before they named your passion sin. Before they taught you that pleasure must be earned. Through obedience, through discipline, through denial. But what if your pleasure is your discipline? What if your longing is your compass? What if the ache in your chest, the stir in your belly, the electric hum between your ribs is not weakness to be purged, but wisdom to be followed? Sexual desire is not the end of spiritual growth. It is the gateway. The serpent at the base of your spine was never a threat to heaven. It was heaven, coiled in silence, waiting for your permission to rise. And when it does, it doesn't just awaken the body. It awakens the truth that you are not a mistake, that your longing is not shameful, that your body is not dirty. It is divine. And in that realization, you stop asking permission to feel. You stop outsourcing your eroticism to culture, to dogma, to lovers who never learned how to worship a soul in flesh. You reclaim it. You reclaim every stolen inch of sensuality, every moan you swallowed, every kiss you hesitated, every yes you denied yourself because someone once convinced you that desire made you dangerous. And maybe it does, but it is a sacred kind of danger, the kind that burns illusions, that melts falsehoods, that resurrects you from the dead sleep of emotional numbness. Desire will always live because it is not something you create. It is something you remember. And now you remember. You remember what it means to be alive, not just in thought, but in sensation. You remember that to tremble under the weight of desire is not to lose control. It is to return to wholeness. Because for too long, you were taught to split yourself in half, to be wise but never wild, to be pure but never passionate, to be sacred but never sensual. But you are not meant to be half anything. You are meant to be holy in your hunger, to walk as both flame and form, to speak with both tenderness and intensity, to feel the divine not just in prayer, but in the soft, sweat-slick collision of bodies that have finally stopped apologizing for wanting. This is what the world fears. Not your darkness, but your radiance, the radiance that comes when you no longer shrink your light, just to fit inside someone else's comfort, when you no longer pretend your longing is manageable, when you stop tucking your power into quiet corners, hoping no one will see how much fire lives inside of you. But now you burn, not recklessly, but with reverence. You burn through the narratives that caged your body. You burn through the fear that told you love must be sterile. You burn through the lie that pleasure and purpose cannot coexist, because they must, because you're not just here to survive. You are here to feel, to touch, to devour life whole. And in the sacred act of remembering your desire, you do not lose your dignity, you reclaim your divinity. Because desire, true desire, never dies. It only waits for you to come home. And when you do come home, when you stand fully in your skin, fully in your breath, fully in your fire, everything begins to change. Not because you've become someone else, but because you've stopped pretending you were anyone else to begin with. You no longer seek permission to feel deeply, to want boldly, to live sensually. You no longer tiptoe around your own erotic truth. Like it's a fragile secret, you walk with it, you wear it, you speak from it. Because now you know desire isn't here to be controlled. It's here to be cherished. It is not a sin to be burned away. It is a signal to be listened to. It is not a test of your morality. It is a mirror of your vitality. And that mirror, it will always reflect your wholeness. Not just your light, but your heat, your craving for more than survival, your ache to merge not only with another body, but with life itself. That's what sexual desire truly is. Not just the yearning for touch, but the soul's relentless pull toward intimacy with existence, to feel every breath like it matters, to press against the skin of experience until it moans beneath you, to live in such vivid truth that your presence becomes the prayer, not because you've renounced your wildness, but because you finally crowned it. Desire never dies, because you never died. You only forgot, but now you remember. And that remembrance, it is resurrection. It is revolution. It is rebirth. Rebirth into a self that no longer compartmentalizes the sacred and the sensual, because you now understand they are not separate. They never were. Your desire is not a distraction from your purpose. It is a doorway into it. Your longing is not a flaw. It is a compass. Every pulse, every throb, every ache in your being is not just asking for pleasure. It's asking for presence, not just with another, but with the moment itself, with the breath, with the now, with the raw, unapologetic reality of being here, fully embodied, fully awake, fully alive. This is what they didn't teach you, that your hunger is holy, that your passion is prophecy, that your erotic self is not the enemy of your enlightenment. It's the engine, because when you live in alignment with your desire, you stop chasing temporary highs. You stop mistaking numbness for peace. You stop tolerating smallness in your body, in your relationships, in your soul. You begin to crave truth more than comfort, depth more than safety, real over routine. And in that craving, you become a new kind of lover. Not the one who performs love to be accepted, not the one who seduces to feel worthy, not the one who disconnects to stay in control. You become the lover who feels everything and still chooses to stay open. You become the flame, not to burn others, but to remind them how to feel the heat of their own existence. Because when you finally stop fearing your own desire, you stop fearing yourself. And in that fearless self, you find something immortal, something no dogma can suppress, no shame can kill, no time can erase. The purest thing in you, the oldest thing in you, The fire that says, I am here, I am whole, I am hunger, and I am not afraid to burn. And when you burn, not from destruction, but from devotion, you ignite something ancient in others. You become the match that lights forgotten fires, the mirror that reflects hidden truths, the invitation that says, it is safe now to want, to feel, to remember, because this fire is not reckless. It is refined. It is rooted. It is righteous, born not from chaos, but from clarity, from the realization that desire, when honored, does not consume you. It completes you. It reclaims all the parts of you that were told to sit down, to shut up, to behave. It gathers the fragments you scattered in relationships that feared your depth. It gathers the moments you hid behind politeness, when all you wanted to do was live out loud. And it welds them back together, not into the version of you the world asked for, but into the version you were before the world interrupted. The wild, wise, wide-open soul who didn't second-guess her pulse, who didn't apologize for his ache, who didn't fear being too much, because that version never died. That version only went underground, buried beneath the noise, beneath the shame, beneath the belief that the holiest parts of you had to be hidden to be honored. But now you rise, with every breath that dares to be sensual, with every thought that reclaims its erotic intelligence, with every moment you choose not to numb, but to notice. This is why sexual desire never dies, because it isn't separate from your spirit. It is your spirit in motion, in expression, in communion with the physical world. And the more you honor that, the more alive you become. Because to be truly alive, to be fully here, is to stop pretending that your soul and your skin are speaking different languages. They are not. Your body is not a prison. It is a prayer, a living altar to the life force that moves through you, in pulses, in breath, in rhythm. And that rhythm, it does not ask for your shame. It asks for your surrender. Not the kind of surrender that makes you smaller, but the kind that sets you free. Free to feel everything, from the softest longing to the wildest craving, from the tender ache to the holy climax. Not just with a partner, but with existence itself. Because your sexual desire is not waiting for someone to validate it. It is waiting for you to stop denying it, to stop filtering it through guilt, to stop locking it behind titles, roles, and expectations, to stop outsourcing your permission to the doctrines that fear your power. You don't need permission to burn. You were born on fire. And when you finally accept that, when you stop trying to tame your essence and start trusting it, you become dangerous in the best possible way. Not because you destroy, but because you disrupt. You disrupt the lies, the conditioning, the cages. You walk into rooms as your whole self, and every mask trembles. Because no one is more powerful than the one who no longer hides. No one is more magnetic than the one who is unapologetically lit from within. And no one is more divine than the one who can say with a steady heart, I trust my body. I trust my longing. I trust my desire because it is not separate from my divinity. It is my divinity in motion. And when divinity moves through you like that, as desire, as passion, as pleasure, you begin to understand a deeper truth. That healing was never just about silence or stillness or denial. It was about integration. It was about calling your fire back home, the fire they called inappropriate, the fire they labeled dangerous, the fire they feared because they never learned how to hold their own. But you are learning, you are remembering, you are reclaiming your erotic intelligence as the compass it always was. And in doing so, you stop asking questions like, is this too much? Am I wrong for wanting this? Will they still love me if I show all of me? Because those questions no longer hold power when your power is no longer up for negotiation. When you belong to yourself so completely that your desire is no longer a test, it's a truth. Not a problem to be solved, but a presence to be felt. A sacred hum beneath your ribs that says, this is what it means to be human, to ache, to hunger, to connect. Because at the center of every sexual longing is the longing to be met, to be seen without masks, to be touched without fear, to be known beyond the surface. And when you finally meet yourself that way, with reverence, with honesty, with unflinching presence, you stop settling for lovers who only want your body but fear your being. You stop offering fragments when you were meant to be experienced whole. You stop chasing what was never designed to hold the wildness you carry, because now you hold it. You hold it not with clenched fists, but with sacred hands. Not to possess it, but to protect it, to cradle your own flame with the devotion it was always worthy of. And because you hold it, because you finally dare to stand in the full gravity of your erotic truth, you become untouchable in all the ways that used to break you. The lovers who only loved your light but not your shadow, they fall away. The ones who praised your mind but feared your body, they disappear. The stories that told you to hide your heat to be holy, they dissolve. Because now you see it clearly. There is nothing holier than a human being who walks in alignment with their sensual truth, who makes no apology for being both storm and sanctuary, who can kiss with intention, touch with reverence, and still sit in stillness without needing anyone to validate their worth. Because sexual desire, when awakened, does not create chaos. It creates clarity. Clarity about who you are. Clarity about what you crave. Clarity about what you will no longer accept. And in that clarity, you no longer just seek pleasure. You seek presence. You seek depth. You seek the slow burn, the kind that doesn't just touch your skin, but sets your soul on fire. You want a kind of union where you don't have to perform or hide or pretend, where your nakedness is not just physical, it is emotional, it is energetic, it is existential. And the ones who can meet you there, truly meet you, will never be afraid of your heat, because they will have met their own, and that is why sexual desire never dies. Because it's not chasing a person, it's chasing a mirror, the mirror that reflects your full, unashamed, uncontainable self, and says without trembling, yes, this, all of you, I see it, I stay. And when you are seen like that, truly, deeply, without reduction, something in you clicks into place. Not the ego, not the wounded child seeking approval, not the conditioned self waiting to be chosen, but the soul that has waited lifetimes to be mirrored not by fantasy, but by presence. Because sexual desire, at its highest form, is not about indulgence. It's about recognition. Recognition that says, I remember you in me. I feel myself more clearly because of how you stand with me in truth. It is the force that tears down the wall between the sacred and the sensual. It doesn't demand performance. It invites participation. You are no longer a spectator of your own longing. You are no longer a passive vessel waiting for love to awaken you. You are the awakening, the one who no longer separates intimacy from integrity, the one who understands that sensuality without soul is emptiness wearing perfume, and that soul without sensuality is wisdom that never touches the earth. You want both. You are both. You carry the temple and the thunder, the devotion and the danger, the silence between breaths and the scream beneath the skin. And this reclamation, this unflinching embrace of your sexual truth as a sacred compass, as a creative force, as a birthright, this is what returns you to your original self, the self before censorship, the self before shame, the self that knows what it wants and doesn't fear its own fire. Because when you stop fearing desire, you stop fearing your own power. And when you stop fearing your power, you become free. So this is the return, not to someone else, but to yourself, to the untamed, unfiltered, unforgotten you, who always knew desire was never a threat. It was a truth, a compass, a code, a flame the world tried to extinguish, but could never touch. Because fire that comes from the soul doesn't die in silence. It waits, and when it rises, it doesn't just light your body, it illuminates your becoming. So now you walk as both invitation and boundary, as both hunger and holiness, as both creation and creature, no longer chasing love through sacrifice, no longer shrinking to be safe, no longer mistaking numbness for peace. You feel everything. You withhold nothing. And still, you are not consumed. You are complete. Because you finally remember sexual desire never dies. For the same reason, your soul never dies. It was never meant to. It was only meant to be reclaimed.